Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. You are listening to high definition radio, more content per cubic inch than any other place on your radio or a television dial for that matter. Just to close the loop on this IRS debacle and the kind of stuff that is going on here, this misconduct that they are guilty of and the fact that they are being rewarded for this. I mean, it's just unconscionable. And it illustrates that difference that I talked about at the end of the last segment, that difference between liberals and conservatives is that conservatives reward achievement. Conservatives reward accomplishment. Conservatives reward honesty and integrity and hard work and discipline. What liberals reward, as the IRS illustrates, and as healthcare illustrates, Obamacare, they reward failure. They reward ineptitude. They reward incompetence. They reward corruption. I mean, all of those things are resume enhancers if you happen to be in the liberal persuasion. And this is the group, this IRS, that's coming after the AFA. They want to try to revoke. They already did yesterday. They revoked the status of a C3 group, 501c3 group. That's exactly what AFA is. And they revoked their tax-exempt status because they expressed their opinions of respective candidates' character and qualifications. So they were just giving an objective assessment of the candidate's character, candidates' qualifications. They weren't endorsing. They weren't saying vote for or vote against. They were saying, look, here are things you need to know about this candidate for public office. That's information. That's education. That does not cross the line. The way you cross the line with the C3 thing, I mean, I don't think the IRS ought to have the capacity to do this anyway. This is not even a legitimate function of the federal government to begin with, to control political speech. But the way you get in trouble with the IRS with the C3 is if you endorse somebody, you got your C3 status, and you endorse somebody, you've crossed the line. That's where you can get in trouble. Now they're expanding that. No, essentially what they're saying, if you even talk about a candidate, and this wasn't even, and this went clear back to 2005 when Hillary Clinton was not even a candidate. I mean, they're dinging this organization for things that they said about Hillary Clinton before she was even in a campaign, before she had officially declared as a candidate for office, before she was on a ballot anywhere. They went back and found these things and went after them and jerked their tax-exempt status for simply talking about a candidate who wasn't even running for office at the time. So they've expanded this definition. It's no longer now endorsing or not endorsing. That's the bright line that we always observe here at AFA. Never endorsed anybody on this program. You know that. I will have guests on here, and I'll make it explicit that I'm not endorsing. We don't do that here. We just want to give you information. But now what the IRS is saying is if you just talk about a candidate, you make any sort of assessment about a candidate's qualifications for office, we are going to grab your tax-exempt status, and we're going to yank it from you so fast it'll give you a nosebleed. And let's see if there's anything else. Oh, yeah. Speaking of the IRS, you talk about a dictatorial bureaucracy. When the IRS makes an error, it is the citizens that carry the burden to prove that the IRS is wrong. The presumption in our legal system, and it's a correct one, it's a right one, is that from a legal standpoint, not talking about a moral standpoint, but from a legal standpoint, you are innocent until you are proven guilty. You are presumed innocent, and the prosecution has to bring evidence and witnesses into court to demonstrate your culpability under the law. Unless they do that, even if you're morally wrong, even if you did it, but they can't prove it, then legally you go free. You may be morally guilty. You might even be technically guilty of breaking the law, but if they can't prove it, you go free. In the IRS, it's the other way around. You are presumed guilty, and the burden of proof is not on the state, but it's upon you to undo what the IRS has done to you. You have guarantees in the 6th and 7th Amendment of trial by jury, but the IRS completely sidesteps all of that. They can find you guilty, They can assess you fees and penalties and taxes and interest. And here's the deal. If that happens, you can't even file an appeal. You cannot even go to court on your own behalf unless you have paid all of the alleged taxes, the alleged penalties, and the alleged interest in full. So the IRS bills you. They say, you're guilty of this. We're going to assess you all these unpaid taxes, all these penalties, all the interest that's accumulated, and there's nothing you can do about it. You don't get a hearing. You don't get a day in court. You don't get an opportunity to present your side of the case. They just send you a bill in the mail, and you can't even legally file an appeal for that until you've paid every last dime you're owed. That's the only way you can walk into federal court, if you've paid that money, which you may or may not owe. So there's no burden of proof on the IRS. You know, and the Fourth Amendment protects our freedom from searches and seizures, but the IRS has summons authority under the tax code, Section 7602, that allows the IRS to obtain records of every description from any person without showing probable cause and without a court order. So we've got a renegade, out-of-control agency that has conservatives and conservative organizations in its gun sights, and they themselves do not even obey the law that they pretend and hope to impose on us. Now, we got the same problem with the healthcare deal that we have with the IRS. Here's a piece from the Washington Examiner. Despite Obamacare's woes, many high-ranking CMS employees got raises, data show. Despite controversial delays in Obamacare and costly problems with its healthcare.gov website, most officials at the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, that's the office that oversees Obamacare, they're responsible for the whole thing, they were paid more last year than the year before, newly released data show. Of the nearly 400 people in the data who worked with CMS in 2012 and who remained with the agency last year, nearly half of them got raises, with the average raise being worth $4,706. Now let me ask this question. How big a raise did you get last year? The people that are running Obamacare, this absolute boondoggle of a scam, a catastrophe, filled with fraud, filled with ineptitude, hasn't run right from day one. They got $4,700 and $4,706 in raises last year. How much did you get? And you probably showed up to work every day. You probably worked hard. You probably contributed something productive to your place of employment. So they're out there rewarding failure, rewarding ineptitude. That's what the federal government does. Conservatives reward achievement. Now let's grab this soundbite from clip number 10. This is Representative Steve Lynch. He's a Democrat from Massachusetts. And now he is telling the truth about Obamacare. He says, look, this thing is going to get worse before it gets better. We haven't even seen the worst of it yet. It's going to hit the fan, was his expression. And he says, look, there's something, and this hadn't even occurred to me until he said this. Here's a Democrat from Massachusetts telling about something unprecedented that is now happening in America that has never, ever happened before. Steve Lynch, Democrat from Massachusetts. Let's listen.
There are parts of Obamacare that, or the Affordable Care Act, that have been postponed because they are unpalatable. So as these provisions come into effect, the administration thus far is saying, gee, we really can't handle this right now, so we're going to delay it. These obligations keep piling up. The mandatory registration, the penalties, it's going to hit the fan because anybody and any individual with an individual health care plan that exceeds $10,200 is in a Cadillac plan situation. They're going to have to pay that employer, if they provide that, and many do today, never mind in 2018, will have to pay a 40% tax on the amount over the maximum established under the Affordable Care Act. So that's a huge tax. It'll be the first time in this country's history that we have actually taxed health care. We used to treat it like food, that people would die without it. Don't tax that. Right. Well, we're in a new day now.
And that's a remarkable observation that hadn't occurred to me. You know, the reason that employers provide health care for their employees is the federal government. There was a wage freeze on at the time, post-World War II, so they couldn't raise wages. It was against the law to raise wages. You can believe that. Stupid idea, but that was the deal. Can't raise wages. So the only thing they could do was to give employees health care benefits because those were not considered taxable benefits. They weren't considered technically part of your wages and salaries. So that's when employers began offering employees health care benefits, and they have always historically been exempt from taxation. And Steve Lynch, a Democrat, saying that's over. That's history. That's no longer the case. Now, for the first time in our history, you are being taxed on your health care benefits. Now it's just the Cadillac plans, but we'll wonder how long that restriction will last. Let's grab a phone call. Let's go to Buddy, Spring, Texas. Buddy in Spring, Texas, welcome. What's on your mind?
Hi, Brian. God bless you and your ministry. I don't know. I'm just appalled at everything going on in our country. To hear you say prayer for everyone just kind of relaxes me. Otherwise, I'm just usually stressed out.
Yeah, we got to do that at the beginning of every program, buddy, just to maintain our sanity.
Absolutely. And what I want to say is I want to touch on two items. And, of course, I could go on, but I don't want to take more than what's reasonable time-wise. I want to say that I pray that all of the seniors like me, I'll be 73 in a couple of months, I just pray that all the seniors don't stick their head in the sand like they did at the last two presidential elections. It doesn't make any difference who would run against Obama. Whoever it would be would have been better than him. I think everybody realizes that now. He's just about destroyed our country, and all of these thieves and swindlers and no-goods that are in his administration, and just as you pointed out, in the IRS. I mean, first of all, those are the biggest swindlers and crooks in the administration. To have the gall to come after God-believing and fearing people like the Tea Party and the radio stations that keep us informed, and to let their own thieves go and get bonuses and things like that. I mean, please, people, wake up.
Yeah, buddy, I got to let you go because I'm up against a hard break, but you're exactly right. These people shouldn't be getting rewards. They shouldn't be getting bonuses. They should be in jail. If you and I did what these IRS employees did, we would be in jail. They're getting bonuses. Focal Point, AFR Talk.